Hi, I'm Scott Schaefer, dog behaviorist. After working with thousands of dogs and their owners, I've learned this. Most cases are not about obedience, they're about underlying behavior patterns that haven't been correctly identified.
This is the USA Dog Behavior Podcast with Scott Schaefer. Scott is a certified dog behaviorist specializing in aggression, fear, and anxiety in dogs. If you're dealing with serious behavior challenges or want a clearer understanding of how behavior really works, you're in the right place.
Today's episode is titled, You're Not Dealing with Disobedience, You're Misreading Behavior. I want to talk with you about something that trips up a lot of dog owners, and honestly, a lot of dog professionals as well. And that's this idea that when a dog is struggling, it must be just a dog training issue. Sit, stay, down, come, that kind of stuff. That the dog just needs better obedience training. But in many of the cases I see, that's not what's going on at all. In fact, 95 or more % of the dogs I see do not need more dog training. In fact, the best human analogy I can make to this is thinking that a person with bulimia, the fear of food, the anxiety associated with food, that person needs to learn better table manners as a way to address that. I want you to think about that for a second. It's an almost perfect analogy and one that I use a lot. And why does it work? Well, we know that bulimia is a deep behavioral issue and that table manners are just a presentation. Modifying how the bulimic looks around food doesn't change the underlying behavior issue whatsoever. And that's exactly what's happening with dogs. When we treat the presenting issues and not the root cause, we can be real frustrated in our efforts. Let's start with how most people interpret dog behavior. They'll say things like, my dog is just stubborn. He's not listening to me. I know that she knows better. That's a very human way of interpreting what's happening, and I think somewhat normal and common. But dogs aren't making decisions the way that we think they are, or in the ways that we do. What you're actually seeing most of the time is a result of an underlying learned behavioral pattern for the dog, a pattern that is rewarding for the dog. And that pattern hasn't been correctly identified yet, so when we don't know what it is, we can't address it properly. Now, here's where this problem becomes a big problem. If you misidentify the cause of the behavior, you're going to apply the wrong solution, many times making the behavior problem worse. So instead of addressing the pattern, you start trying to control the outcome. In essence, ignoring the root cause while attempting to manage how the behavior manifests in the dog. So we teach the dog more commands, we do more correction, we implement more management of the dog's behavior. And sometimes it can look like it's working in the short term. But over time, it often makes things worse. Let me take a second right now to tell you about a service I offer. I'll be right back, and when we come back, I'm going to give you an example of what I'm talking about.
Scott will be right back. For animal shelters, rescues, and veterinary practices working with aggression, fear, or anxiety in dogs, Scott Schaefer provides professional behavioral seminars available online or on-site, focused on practical, real-world strategies. Each seminar is customized for your team with discounted or complimentary options available. Visit usadogbehavior.com to learn more. Now, back to Scott.
All right, let's get back to it. A really common example of trying to control behavior instead of understanding it and its root cause is leash reactivity or leash aggression directed at other dogs. For example, if you're walking your dog, the dog is lunging, growling, barking at another dog walking by. The dog starts to escalate the reactivity or aggression. The owner responds by tightening the leash, starting to give commands, and generally trying to control the dog. From the owner's perspective, that seems like the sensible thing to do. But from the dog's perspective, the environment just got more tense, more pressure, more unpredictability. Owner is acting nervous and scary. Maybe this really is a bad thing, thinks the dog. And all of that, of course, feeds the behavior, making it worse. So the owner starts to think in this scenario, this dog is getting worse. And the truth is, it is. When we handle dogs like this with behavior issues, sometimes it makes it worse. But what's actually happening is the pattern is being reinforced. This is why so many cases feel unpredictable to the dog's owner. They have no idea what the real issue is with the dog. They're just trying to manage the outward behaviors. But you know what? They're not unpredictable. There's a pattern. But the pattern of the behavior hasn't been recognized by a human yet, only the outcome of the behavior. And by the way, on this example I gave you, which is a very common example of dog reactivity, dogs reacting to other dogs, almost always the root cause is fear, not something at all that most dog owners consider. But once we realize that the root cause is almost always fear, we address the fear instead of how it looks on the outside, barking, growling, lunging, those kinds of behaviors. Once you start to see and understand patterns in dogs, everything changes. You start noticing things like early signals before escalation of the behavior starts, how your timing affects the dog, what's the dog's current tolerance level of the trigger. And now you're not reacting, you're interpreting. You're responding to your dog's behavior. This is something I see all the time when I'm working with veterinary teams, shelters, dog trainers, and other dog organizations. Dogs get labeled as aggressive or difficult or untrainable or needs to be euthanized for behavior issues. But in many cases, the issue isn't that professionals aren't working hard on the dog's behavior issues. It's not that they're not caring. It's just that they're not addressing the root cause. They're running in circles and don't even know it. It's the correct interpretation and understanding of the behavioral patterns that make all the difference. And when you change the interpretation, the motivation for your dog's behavior, you can change the outcome. So instead of asking, how do I get my dog to listen? Start asking, what pattern is driving this behavior? What has the dog learned that makes him or her do this behavior? And that's when real progress begins. Most challenging behavior issues don't persist because dogs are disobedient. They stick around because the behavior hasn't been correctly understood. And when you shift from a dog obedience perspective to understanding patterns and learned behaviors and root causes, you start making decisions that actually change behavior in the long term. If you have a dog whose behavior issues are not improving and are serious, please see a qualified, experienced dog behaviorist who doesn't use punishment-based methods. Now you understand the real story behind your dog's behavior.
You've been listening to the USA Dog Behavior Podcast with Scott Schaefer. For more resources, including videos, articles, and past episodes, visit usadogbehavior.com. If you found this episode helpful, consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Thanks for listening.